finding the magic inside you. Find out what makes you tick, whether you're an organization or an individual, and lean into that and what makes you shine.
Hello and welcome back to the Amanda Kaufman Show. I am so excited to continue our segment on coaches that don't suck. And to continue this conversation, I have my friend Jason Lorber here. And dude, we've known each other for several years, and we were just reminiscing about connecting for the very first time. And you've come a long way with your business and everything. Why don't you take 30 seconds and share with us about Aplomb Consulting and what is it that you do these days?
Sure. So, Aplomb Consulting, we facilitate change with the underlying premise that everyone has a magic inside them and no one likes being told what to do.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's just genius. And you're making me think about our very first calls and interactions. And yeah, everyone does have a magic inside them. And of course, people don't want to be told what to do. I think my average listener is either an entrepreneur or an aspiring entrepreneur. And I like to remind them very often is, hey, you chose this path for a reason. Like you didn't want to go somewhere else. So talk to me a little bit about your journey. You mentioned that coaching is something that you do in your business. You also do consulting. How did you come about doing this with your business full time?
I started my business right out of business school, and I was going into organizations as an expert, and I was telling them how to do things. And lo and behold, they're like, "This is awesome, thank you," and then they didn't do it.
Oh,
And
that was my experience with consulting as well. It was just like, that looks really shiny. Good job, pat on the head. And they didn't do it
right,
sometimes. A lot of the time, they didn't do it.
and so then I took a break. I served in the legislature. I was in the House of Representatives in Vermont,
Oh, wow.
and then after 8 years, I decided to go back to business. And as I entered back into my business, I want to make a difference.
Mm.
And so I started looking into different models of meeting folks where they are, whether they're leaders, individuals, rising stars, or organizations, and saying, what is it that you need? And rather than me coming up with the answers, to say, what is it that your organization wants to do? Or what is it that you want to do? And so my job is to help leaders empower their teams. And the tools I use are strategic planning, team building, executive coaching, and mediation.
Oh,
And so
goodness. You've got quite the tool belt. You're like Batman.
yes, where's my cape? And yeah, so it just depends what people need at the time. And I do remember though, when I first started the coaching aspect of it, because I knew a lot about businesses and organizations and people, but I was very nervous about coaching. We can never be experts. Simon Sinek says anyone who calls themselves an expert is a fraud because we can always get better, right?
It's so true. I think that breaking up with a rival and instead falling in love with mastery and optimization has been for sure one of my most transformative personal mindset shifts. And it's so funny you said don't call yourself an expert. Definitely one of my programs is called the Experts Network. Moving forward, I really love how you have identified something really important that, and I'm not sure that everybody really understands that this can be a great success pathway, is you were really clear about the problem of appropriate magnitude. Around here, we call that a PAM, the problem of appropriate magnitude that you wanted to solve. It wasn't about Jason, the coach, and Jason becoming the coach. It was more about here's a population that's suffering and is willing to part ways with money to solve it. Who must I become? And then allowing yourself to become a mediator, become a coach, become like whatever you needed to become in order to solve like the PAM, to solve the problem of appropriate magnitude. And yeah, that's awesome. Did you get specific advice to do it that way, or was that an intuitive hit that you should do it that way? Like how did you come to arrive at that?
It's interesting. I want to say that it's intuitive, and it was intuitive, but it was more intuitive for my clients because
Oh.
they would say, "Hey, could you do this work?" I remember when I did my first mediation, I'm like, I'm not a mediator. Again, that's a label, that's a
Oh,
name that, you
yes.
know, but I'm like, but I can facilitate a conversation. And I was doing that, and I helped people through a very difficult conflict. Again, not by prescribing solutions. I'm like, this is up to you. And then after we completed that, I turned to my mediator friends and I said, so what did I do that's different than mediation? And they said, Jason, that is a mediation. You're a mediator. I'm like, I am? Oh, okay.
You're like an
And
accidental tennis player. I love it.
and yeah, and I've had clients come to me and just sense that I'm having difficult with some folks in this one department. They're just not getting along. Could you do some team building? And I said, I've never done something like that. But then I did it and it worked. And then I started telling people, oh, I could do this other thing.
That's
And
so
it
good.
kept working.
I really love this, and thank you for recounting your story because I know that when I was starting out for sure, and I hear this a lot, there's this expectation that we're supposed to just have this super linear, laid out, absolutely clarified 5, 10, 20 year plan. And I've just never really, I know the broad strokes in
Yeah.
my own life of where I want to be in 20 years in the sense of the fulfillment I'd like to have, some of the accomplishments I'd like to have. But insofar as like fitting everything onto this perfect little Gantt chart of clarity in
Yeah.
advance, definitely not. That has never ever been my experience. I tend to live in like a 90-day year mode. And as long
But
as the
that's
broad strokes are there, we're good.
yeah, and that's great to have that plan. And just I work with organizations to create strategic plans. So you create the plan as soon as it's done, something changes. There's a
1000%.
competitor, there's COVID, there things change. And but what you've done is you started thinking strategically. You've got your Gantt chart, they've got their strategic plan. And now we're going to just go with it. And oh, a client just asked me to do this thing I've never done before. Yes, I'm going to do that. I'm going to be upfront and say, just so you know, I haven't done this, but I can give it a try if that's
Well,
what
and
you
what's
want.
cool is like you took it's I the term that's coming into my head is success adjacency. So you had success and you were in success, and then they were like, what else could you do? Because
That's
you were
right.
already in service and they're like, this looks a little like that. Do you think you could do that? That's what I'm hearing a lot of your business building was around.
Yeah, and I love the book Good to Great by Jim Collins. And he
That's
does all this research looking at what separates the great companies from the good companies. And one of the theories that he had, and maybe it was that book, maybe it was Great by Choice. Read all of his books, Jim Collins. And and one of the things that he was expecting to see was with the great companies that they would have had a plan of these are our stretch goals. And this is because he talks about big, hairy, audacious goals. He coined that term. And it wasn't the case that a lot of the leaders just said, we just work really hard and we've got our systems down and we see what opportunities come as they may, and then we
Hmm.
capitalize on those, and the big failures we learn from them and then we move forward. So
I love that. I love that. And I wanted to circle back to like on the strategic planning piece of it. The tendency, I think, people, because they're seeking so much certainty, they're seeking like that everything is just predetermined in advance and you can tell the future somehow, right? Which you obviously cannot.
actually
But
I can, but I'm not gonna.
you can, but the
Yeah,
rest of us cannot.
yeah,
Yeah, fair clarification.
I knew you were gonna
For
say
me,
that. Yeah.
is that when you do the strategic plan, you knew I was going to say that. I just caught that. I was thinking you almost threw me. You almost threw me. The strategic plan concept and it changing just as soon as you finish writing the plan. What came up for me was that it's so much easier to edit than it is to create. Right?
Absolutely.
When you've been doing this for years, right? So like you've gone through COVID with your clients and things like that and all the dystopian fun things that we've been doing lately.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, can you talk to me a little bit about how is it that you've built your network to be like this strong, that you happen to be like in these places and you can create that success and you can do that. You're obviously a very gregarious, fun guy. And I know for me, I've had to learn a lot of that stuff. So I always like to ask somebody who has a way with, oh, I have a friend that does this, I have a friend that does
Mhm.
that. I'm like, you do? How did you meet those friends? Can you catch me up on that? What's your philosophy when it comes to relationship building?
Yeah, one, I learned from this amazing woman, Amanda Kaufman.
You
And
don't tell
what
me about her.
you should meet her. You would love her. Anyway, what you told me is, you need to be contacting people every single day.
Yeah, it's true.
And if you do that, if you talk to one person a day, that's 200, 300 people a year that suddenly you have. And I was just looking through my clients over the last couple years, and I'm like, where did they come from?
That's such a good
And
exercise. Everyone should do that. Where did my friends come from? I'm serious. Like, where did
yeah,
your coach come from? Where'd you find your hairstylist? Like, you really should actually retrace the steps, but please go on. What did you find?
I found that it wasn't any one technique, that a
That's so
lot of
good.
it came from referrals. But I just finished a pretty large engagement from someone who I last spoke to 12 years ago.
That's
And
awesome. That's
and
incredible.
I got another client from someone who I had worked with a few years ago, but he had just referred me. And I happened to engage him. So I also do stand-up comedy. And so sometimes I'll email my friends and my colleagues and I'll say, hey, I've got the show coming up. And so it's, oh, Jason, yeah, I'm not going to your show, but I might have a client for you.
That's
And
so good. Like, I think sometimes we think, oh, I have to be so buttoned up and top of mind in a professional way. And I'm like, oh
I
my
like that
goodness.
voice.
But it's true, right? We kind of
Yeah.
channel this person that we would hate to hang out with. And we're like, you know what I'm going to do when I build relationships? I'm going to be that. And it is a funny thing that we do, because I think it's hard sometimes to get vulnerable and show people who we really are and admit that I do have outside interests.
And that's what we're there for as coaches, for people to transform into whoever they are and whoever they need to be and want to be. And
Hmm.
so we're trusting them. We're not telling them what to do. If a client comes to me for advice, I'll say, "What do you think?"
That's
And
always where I start. Is I'm like, so what did you figure out so
right.
far?
And because
Yeah.
I find like 9 times out of 10, they're not going to listen to me. So I'll say, okay, I will answer your question. I'm not ducking it, but tell me, what are your options right now? What are you thinking of moving forward? And 9 times out of 10, they get there and they're like, they don't really care what I have to say because they
I think
figured it
that's
out
so true.
themselves.
That's
And
so
so
true.
we're telling our clients to do that. We need to tell ourselves that, hey, I'm doing my thing. And that's where I'm talking about finding the magic inside you. Find out what makes you tick, whether you're an organization or an individual, and lean into that and what makes you shine.
That's so good. I think especially in a social media preoccupied kind of a world, it's
Ugh.
so easy to slip into the comparison trap. And I've got two minds on comparison, and I actually really love your perspective on this one. That saying comparison is the thief of joy. I'm like, does that make me some kind of an anti-hero? Because I compared myself like crazy to people that I admired.
Yeah.
And I would admire the way somebody did a speaking engagement, or I'd admire the questions somebody had asked, or I was just admiring how you have this vibiness that I really love. And I think, yeah, what's your take on that? Is comparison the thief of joy, or can it actually help you not suck?
So I play tennis and I usually play with other guys. And guys are men suck. But guys are they're just competitive.
Unless they're coaches, because coaches don't suck.
Coach is awesome.
Coaches are
Um
awesome.
and I'm competitive, but when I'm playing tennis with a friend and I hit a winner, I want him to say, "Great shot." And that's what I try to cultivate in myself. Is if my opponent hits a great shot, I genuinely are like, wow, that was amazing. Now, when I screw up, when I hit the ball out, I'm like, oh. okay, so then I'm hard on myself. But what I don't like is when my opponent, if I hit a good shot and they say, you suck. I'm like, clearly you're
Mm,
wrong because I just won the point. Uh, but also be competitive with yourself, not with someone else.
so good. So good. Yeah, I love that. I think admiration is really powerful, but I love that distinction of just, yeah, but be your cheerleader too. And just pull insights from wherever you need to be
Uh,
your own champion. And I think that's one of the biggest cases for why I think a lot of coaches, it's actually amazing to me how many coaches stop themselves from enrolling in a program or enrolling with another coach because they tell themselves the story that they're good enough at
yeah.
tennis. And it's if you were good enough at tennis, you would probably win a few of those points, don't you think? And if you're not winning the points, it doesn't mean that you at a base soul level suck. It means that you probably need some training and maybe some coaching and maybe some different perspective about how you're approaching the metaphorical game,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I love.
And having said all this, I do get envious of my friends and wow, I can't believe she's done amazing. Her business has grown so much and mine is, but then I also have to remember I have a great work-life balance. I'm married to the same man for 25 years. We have an
Nice.
18-year-old son. I've invested a lot of my time in other things, and I served in the legislature. I'm a stand-up comedian. I opened for Joan Rivers. These are like amazing things for to me. And so I'm like, but my business, I want my business to business is doing well, but I always want more.
Totally get that. I love that because here's the truth about the gap, though, is that when we have that gap to traverse, it's, I think, easy to get into that comparison. But at the same time, we need that drive to close that gap or that drive to chase after that thing. And I'm sure even
Yeah.
in stand up comedy, you probably are a lot better now than you were when you very first started.
Oh, totally. And yeah, and one of my favorite Zumba instructors, I remember when he just started out and it's okay.
Oh,
And
we're
now
dancing.
he's
Okay, we're
amazing.
dancing.
He's amazing. It's that 10,000 hour rule. You need to put in the time and you'll get better.
And by the way, that is a reference to the book, I believe, Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, right?
Yeah,
10,000
yeah,
Hour
yeah,
Rule.
yeah.
Yeah. So my show notes are going to be so fun. It's going to be full of lots of little books
Oh,
for
and all
just,
these books that people can read. Yes, podcast.
yeah, definitely draw your inspiration from wherever you can. I'm glad you brought up and touched on life balance. I think one of the stories that I hear a lot of coaches that are struggling to attract those clients or they're struggling with the perception that their business isn't growing fast enough or maybe the reality that it's not growing fast enough.
Right.
What would you say are like three things that help a coach not to suck?
Be clear about what you want out of this. Why are you doing this work? If it's just to make money, you're not going to be very successful. But if it's to help other people out, then you're on the right track. And just try to get really good at what you do, and let that be a joy. Let that fill you up with inspiration. And so I guess that's one thing. Another thing would be not suck. Be honest with yourself and understand who you are, what your values are. How are you going to grow your business? Not the same way that Amanda does, not the same way that Jason does, but what's true to you? Who are the
Mm-hmm.
people that you want to serve? How are you going to carve out that market and how you want to show up? And then the third thing, if I had to pick one, I would say treat yourself with kindness.
Totally.
That just don't be so hard on yourself, that you're going to get there. Where you are is great. Think about how far you had to come to where you are now, and you're just going to keep going.
Yeah, gotta honor that journey. Jason, this has been just such a joy, and I know people are gonna want to follow you. So, what's the best way to do that?
Sure. My website is aplomb.com, APLOMB.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn and look me up. Happy
I
to.
love it. Yeah, thanks for joining. And thank you for listening in on another segment of the show. Do us a favor, make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss another episode, and leave us a 5-star review so that other people can find the episode and that we can help more coaches live their dreams. We'll see you in another episode. Bye bye.